We are complete. All right, it is. Good morning. I'm Mitch Mitchell, Chair of the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners. It is exactly 10:07 on July 25th, 2023, and I'm going to call to order today's special meeting of the board. We are meeting in person this morning with commissioners, staff, and members of the public in attendance. We have a quorum with 5 members. Yes, 5. No, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, I had to count again. It's 5 members present. Video of today's meeting is also being streamed live online. The link to watch today's meeting is on the Housing Commission website at www.sdhc.org. Members of the public who wish to provide comments to the board will need to complete a speaker slip here in the boardroom and submit it to our Director of Communications, Susie Kaywood, who is standing there to the side of the room. To speak in favor of any item on today's agenda, please submit the gold-colored form. To speak in opposition to an agenda item, please submit the pink-colored form. And if you wish to address the board about a topic that is not on the agenda, please fill out a white speaker form. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments about agenda items or non-agenda public comments. However, if a large number of people wish to provide non-agenda public comments or speak on a single agenda item, comments will be limited to 1 minute each. Collective testimony by those who support or oppose an item shall be limited to no more than 15 minutes total per side. When I call your name, please step to the podium, state your name for the record, and begin making your comments. I do not have any non-agenda public comment slips in front of me. No sticker slips have been submitted, so we'll move right into today's agenda. Item 100. The first item is the authorization to apply for state home key program funds for the property at 3860 Murphy Canyon Road. We will take public comments after the staff presentation. Executive Vice President of Real Estate, Emily Jacobs, and Vice President of Finance and Acquisitions, Buddy Bohr, will present these items. Emily and Buddy, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Next slide, please. Yep. Next slide. All right. New clicker. Thanks for your patience.
We heard this earlier, but there's a new clicker. Obviously, it's different.
User error.
Yeah,
User error.
All right, go ahead.
The item before you today is a request to authorize the Housing Commission to submit an application to the State of California Home Key Program. Again, this action item is only for the submission of the application. Home Key is a statewide program designed to rapidly produce housing for people experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. The California Department of Housing and Community Development, which administers the program, issued a notice of funding availability on March 29, 2023. That date's important. It's this year, March 2023. Through this NOFA, $736 million is available statewide. Of that amount, $34 million is set aside for the San Diego's local geographic pool. The board previously has authorized applications for up to $23 million from the San Diego geographic pool for 2 projects. The Housing Commission has since submitted those applications. The San Diego region also has the opportunity to apply for competitive statewide pool of funds. Next slide. The state allows home key funds to be used for a variety of housing options, which are listed on this slide. Home Key program requirements include that all Home Key funds are to be spent within 8 months of the award of funds. All construction and rehabilitation must be completed within 12 months of the award letter. And full occupancy must be achieved by 15 months from the date of award. To sort of right-size that to projects that you typically see before you, a typical project takes 18 months to reach financing close. We are going to occupy in 15 months. Next slide. This slide shows the estimated project timeline. If the board approves the proposed action today, the Housing Commission intends to submit an application this week. The state expects to announce awards within 60 to 90 days, or roughly September or October of this year. If the state awards Home Key funds, the Housing Commission would return to this board and the Housing Authority roughly, I would say, November, to present the comprehensive project and request authorization to accept and expend the Home Key awarded funds. If the state award funds, again, focus on if, the use of the funds is approved for this project, the Housing Commission anticipates acquiring the property in December of 2023. Again, it opened in March, we would acquire in December of 2023, just highlighting the time frame we're talking about here. Based on the Home Key program required timeline, 100% of the Home Key funds would need to be expended in roughly June or July of 2024. Rehabilitation would need to be completed within 12 months, roughly September or October of 2024, and full occupancy achieved 90 days after construction completion. The timeline, again, is contingent on state award and when the state would issue funds. Next slide.
So as you'll recall, property consists of 107 hotel rooms, a lobby area, and a small laundry area. The property is a 3-story elevator-served building in Kearney Mesa in Council District 7. If the state awards home key funds for this project and the Housing Commission acquires the property, the proposed development after purchase and rehabilitation would consist of 105 affordable rental housing units for individuals experiencing homelessness. There would be 1 manager's unit, and 1 hotel unit would be converted into a supportive services area. Next slide. So several due diligence activities have been completed to date, including preliminary title report, appraisal, peer appraisal, physical needs assessment, phase 1 environmental, market study, ALTA, American Land Title Association survey, construction cost assumptions, financial review, the items you see on the slide. Next slide, please. The purchase price per the purchase and sales agreement is up to $40,700,000, which is an amount up to $380,000 per unit. We anticipate the total development cost of the project will be below $400,000 per unit, and these costs do include prevailing wages. So in comparison to the average total development cost of recent Housing Commission Board approved projects, recent Housing Board approved projects average approximately $632,000 per unit, with a range between $523,000 and $750,000. These figures are for projects that do include and some do not include prevailing wages. Next slide, please. So if home key program funds are awarded to the Housing Commission, the award is anticipated to occur in the first half of fiscal year 2024. The potential award for home key funds is not included in the Housing Commission's fiscal 2024 budget, which the Housing Authority approved on June 12th of 2023. If the Housing Commission is authorized to apply for funds, and if funds are awarded to the Housing Commission, it will increase the fiscal year 2024 funding sources and uses by up to $40,250,000 to support the project. The up to amount is higher than what we anticipate requesting in the application. This is to ensure that we have enough cushion for resolution purposes as we prepare the application. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the proposed sources and uses of funds. Next slide, please. So if the Housing Commission purchases and rehabilitates the property, it will create permanent affordable rental housing units with supportive services for people experiencing chronic homelessness, literal homelessness, veterans, and transition-aged youth experiencing homelessness. Residents would receive access to extensive supportive services as shown on this slide. Residents would be identified through referrals from the coordinated entry system. And of the residents experiencing literal and chronic homelessness, 15 people would be veterans. Next slide, please. This is an aerial view of the property. Next slide, please. So the Willow Canyon project is centrally located and close to the following amenities. It's within 0.7 of a mile of Vons for groceries. It's within 0.8 of a mile of a Walmart, and within a half a mile of a bus stop. Next slide, please. So staff recommends that the board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. So this concludes our presentation, and we are available for questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Emily and Buddy. No speaker slips have been submitted for item 100, so this concludes the public comment period for this item. Commissioners, do we have any questions, comments, or motion? Commissioner Vasquez.
I apologize, I just didn't see on the photos of the maps a picture of the nearest elementary school or schools in the vicinity. I appreciate carousel bus and the location and the grocery store on one map, but I didn't see where the kids would be required to go to school.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. This particular property would only house individuals and not families, and that's why we didn't represent schools there. We will going forward. Thank you for notating that. Yeah.
And then the only other question is the permanency. So just to be clear, since it's a permanent location, if somebody needs services for the next 48 months, that would be sufficient. I mean, they'd be able to retain those services or longer.
Yeah, definitely. The Home Key program requires that we ensure a contract of a minimum of 5 years that we intend to re-up every 5. So absolutely, those services would be available. Yeah.
All right. Vice Chair Cloner.
Thank you for all the work. I know that these applications have been a huge undertaking, and then I also want to thank Lisa Jones for the comments that I read in the Sunday paper explaining to the public what the purpose and the value and the effectiveness of permanent supportive housing is, and obviously, this is an incredibly important but also difficult tool for us to create as it relates to homelessness. And I know that we've been over this many times, but since this is an important application, PSH is not for every person who's experiencing homelessness. It's for people who have specific needs, and for anybody out in the public that is concerned about the addiction and mental illness components of homelessness. This is our answer that we have right here. This is what it takes, is housing combined with those services, and we've seen this be very effective. And most importantly, if you could go back to the page that had the comparison with our current averages here. Thank you. Yes, you knew exactly where I was going. Yeah, so we've been approving an average of 632,000, and I know that the sticker shock on these things, we're all still trying to wrap our heads around just the inflation factor. So this has gone up, significantly just in the past couple of years, but as has the cost of housing in general, particularly rental housing in the city. So, but that is as compared to our average, this is over $200,000 per door cheaper than anything else we're producing. And this is, while these are existing buildings, this is creation of new housing because these buildings are not functioning as housing. And so from where I'm sitting today, this is the best it gets in terms of how much permanent supportive housing can we get for our money that we have available. And I know that's not the only factor, but I think that's a very important factor here. So I appreciate everything that we're all doing to move this forward, and we know that there are no guarantees. This is a competitive situation with the state and with other jurisdictions, but we are one of only 2 jurisdictions in the region that have applications in the works right now, and this is our third application, I guess 4th property.
Right.
So hopefully something sticks, and these seem like a great value proposition from that standpoint. So I'd be happy to make the motion.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner.
All right, so we before we get to the motion, I want to mention a couple of things. One, I think for people watching this conversation, again, the speed with which this is moving. Opened in March, here we are in July. We've selected properties. The mission for us is clear: try and get people off the streets, get them into shelter. I want to ask 2 questions. One is, when people see TDC, the total development cost, it's all the soft costs. For those people who don't understand some of that aspect, there's the word rehab people will say, what does that mean? And so, Emily, I know that there's a list of things that we look at for each property, because it's not just a shelter. We're trying to make it a home. Can you talk about that list briefly?
Yeah, definitely. We use a third party to get a physical needs assessment. And what that does is it tells us what it immediately needs just to operate, right? And then what it needs for a 20-year term to be residential housing. And that is a review of all major building systems. And then in addition to that, we have to overlay any of the program requirements, ADA, reconfiguring of any of the units, path of travel, making sure all the major building systems are optimal and will be there for these residents in 20 years.
That's good. So, I mean, so sometimes it requires upsizing with electrical, plumbing changes, adding Wi-Fi, security. Again, this is supposed to be a home, not just a shelter.
That's correct.
So all those are included. Okay. And the soft costs are also permit fees for the city et al. Okay.
Correct. And all of the reports to evaluate, all of the upfront capitalized reserves that are very prudent when you operate real estate.
Sure. Okay, good. And I think it's important to note, because for those who are going to criticize us about spending, as Vice Chair Klempner pointed out brilliantly, far less than what we've been seeing project-wise, and everybody that has sat up here with us knows that we've complained about seeing projects coming in at $650,000 a door. This one's $380,000 a door before you add in all the soft cost at all, but even then at $400,000, it's a great price compared to what we've been seeing that will allow us to move people into permanent housing. So I think that's important to note for everybody before people come up in arms about what we're spending. The last component, the last question I'd ask on this is, as we look at this market, there's not a lot. There's going to be a lot of conversation about building housing. I've asked several developers, can you build housing ground up in the time frame 15 months at $400,000 a door? And the answer from everybody has been absolutely no. Would you agree with that statement?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. We have a motion on the floor by Vice Chair Klempner. Is there a second? Okay. We have a second by Commissioner Vasquez. Any further comment, questions? Okay. Seeing none, we'll call the roll. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you very much, Emily and Buddy. We will now move to item 101. This is the authorization to apply for state home key program grant funds for the property at 2087 Hotel Circle South. We'll take public comments after the staff presentation. Emily and Buddy, the floor is yours once again to present this item.
Good morning again. Next slide, please. The item before you today, again, is simply to request authorization for the Housing Commission to submit an application to the State of California Home Key Program. This slide shows information about the Home Key Program that was also part of the previous presentation. Next slide. This slide once again shows the eligible uses for Home Key funds and the program required timelines. Next slide. Again, similar to the last project, we would be on the same time track for application, for required authorizations, for acquisition, as well as delivering units, again, in remembrance, in lightning fast time. Next slide.
So this property consists of 165 hotel rooms. The hotel has a front lobby and attached office space, and both commercial and public laundry areas. The building is a 3-story building constructed in 1999 and is in the Mission Valley area off of I-8. If the state awards home key funds for this project and the Housing Commission acquires the property, the proposed development after purchase and rehabilitation will consist of 161 affordable rental units dedicated to individuals experiencing homelessness. There would also be 2 managers' units. After the evaluation of supportive services needs at the property, it is determined that 2 hotel units would be converted to additional space for service provider activities. Next slide, please. So due diligence activities have been completed to date, including the items shown on this slide. I won't read them again. Next slide, please. The purchase price per the purchase and sales agreement is up to $65,175,000, which is an amount of up to $395,000 per unit. We anticipate the total development cost of this project will be below $500,000 per unit. These costs do include prevailing wages. In comparison, the average total development cost for recent Housing Commission Board approved projects is over $632,000 per unit, with a range, again, between $523,000 and $750,000 per unit. These are figures that do and do not include prevailing wages. Next slide, please. If home key program funds are awarded to the Housing Commission, the award is anticipated to occur in the first half of fiscal year 2024. The potential award of home key funds is not included in the Housing Commission's fiscal 2024 budget, which the Housing Authority approved on June 12th of 2023. If the Housing Commission is authorized to apply for funds, and if the funds are awarded to the Housing Commission, it will increase the fiscal year 2024 funding sources and uses available by up to $40,250,000 to support the proposed project. As noted in the previous presentation, this up to amount provides Housing Commission the cushion needed in the resolution required to the state. The amount is higher than what we anticipate requesting in our application. Next slide. So this slide shows the proposed sources and uses of funds. If the state awards home key funds, the Housing Commission would return to this board and the Housing Authority with a comprehensive project presentation to request the authorization to accept and expend the funds on the proposed project. Next slide, please. If the Housing Commission purchases and rehabilitates this property, it will create permanent affordable rental housing units with supportive services for people experiencing homelessness. Residents would receive access to extensive supportive services as shown on this slide. Residents would be identified through referrals from the coordinated entry system, and these properties would serve people experiencing literal homelessness, people experiencing chronic homelessness, and transition-aged youth experiencing homelessness. Next slide, please. So this is an aerial of the property. Next slide, please. The Presidio Palms alliteration problem project is centrally located in centrally and close to the following amenities via several bus lines and within feet of the property. It's 2 miles from Vaughn's grocery store and pharmacy, 1.7 miles from UCSD Medical Center, and 1 mile from Presidio Park in Old Town. Next slide, please. Staff recommends that the board take the following actions detailed in the staff report and shown in the following slides. And this concludes our presentation. We're available for any questions you have.
Okay, no speaker slips have been submitted for this item, so the public comment period for this item is closed. Commissioners, do we have any questions, comments, or a motion? Commissioner Vasquez, will you please turn your mic on? I think somebody said that they could not hear you last time, and I said...
My apologies.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
I'm still used to the old ways. We didn't have microphones. So my question, I guess, is I believe this is the same project as the previous project. It's just a different site. And yet it seems as if the cost per unit or per door is higher substantially by about $100,000. I was curious as to what the reasons for that were.
Sure, yeah, it's larger in scale. It's driving a bit more acquisition, a bit more rehab, just because you have more doors to rehabilitate.
Okay.
So that's largely driving the cost.
Okay, that's fair. And then when we saw the overview of the project,
Yes.
I didn't see a pool or like an area, an outside area that you would typically see at a hotel. Is that just my bad vision, or?
No, there isn't exterior space, although we have identified some area for exterior gathering space that will be incorporated in the scope.
Okay, like a community center or community.
Yeah. There is communal space
Activity, okay.
on the interior, but noting that exterior space is also lovely to have, and it's incorporated. Yeah.
After COVID, I think that we all realized how important it is to have an outside community area to gather and be able to get some sun exposure if you're not allowed to do that in your day in, day out life.
Or in my case, I was living with my 2 teenage daughters and my wife, and they wanted me to go outside and get away from them during COVID, so I fully understood that.
They needed to time out from doing work.
All right. Any other questions, comments? I won't repeat, I think, again, what I said earlier about, again, the per cost per door and still below as Buddy, as you put it, below the normal, what we've been seeing. I think this is another great project, and I'll make some additional comments about, again, that the Vice Chair Klempner mentioned this, that only 2 jurisdictions have applied for this funding. I want to commend the governor for making this last round of funding available. The governor has put the onus on us as the cities and the counties. Come up with ways to resolve this problem of homelessness that is growing. And so the fact that there's 2 jurisdictions that are putting in applications is good, but hopefully everybody realizes that this is a 18-city, 1-county problem, not a 2-city problem. And so the fact that you and the team have worked this hard and this fast to get us to this point is amazing. If all 4 applications that we voted on recently were approved, it'd be 349, I think about 350 rooms added to our portfolio to try and help people who are dealing with homelessness, and that is impressive. Again, the mission is clear, try and help, and we have to have properties to do that. The fastest growing segment headed to the streets are seniors. And I think everybody in this region should realize that if you have a parent or a grandparent, you would not want them on the streets. And that's the fastest growing segment. So all of these things help, and I hope that the state will act quickly making a decision and determination on our applications, because I would love to begin moving people in as quickly as possible. And I think the beauty of these projects is we should be well within that 15-month time frame that they've put on us, because we know what we need to go in and do. And again, I agree with you on creating some outdoor space in the one property. We know what we need to go in and do, and that's important. I'll say this in closing. This is going to take a portfolio approach, and that's what we at the Housing Commission have to look at. It's not just, we approved the Alpha Project shelter last meeting. Right. It's not just shelters, it's permanent housing. It's the services that go around it. It's different types of housing for seniors, for youth. I'm excited about what we want to do in this building with youth. And, so again, kudos to the team for recognizing that we have to help build that portfolio. I want to say thanks to the county, because their partnership is really important in this effort. Chair Vargas, Supervisor Reamer, Supervisor Anderson for meeting with the team and talking about what this could mean to chronic homelessness. I want to thank the council president. I want to thank the mayor, because they told us, figure out a way to do it. And without their support, it would be harder. And so in the end, this was not an easy situation. I'm looking forward to the state saying yes, hopefully, and then we can say thanks to all the people involved, including the people that were involved in these discussions and these negotiations involving the properties. And so when it's all said and done, this is our mission, our objective, and we have to continue to do things of this nature to resolve this situation and to truly wrap our, and truly make a difference. So with that, I think these 2 properties are excellent additions if we can get them. And I want to thank everybody for the hard work. I know there's been a lot of long hours, a lot of conversations with some of you who've put up with a lot of questions, and but it's all for the right reason. So, commissioners, I'll entertain a motion in a second if there is one. Oh, we have one question by Commissioner Jackson. Okay. I thought I'm going to give you the second this time, so if you're going to do that. All right, so
okay.
go ahead.
One question, I'm new to this, the meetings. Are any of these dedicated strictly to seniors, since they are the fastest growing segment?
So I don't think we've made, I don't know if we've made that determination.
We have not. For the application, we have to identify buckets of chronic, literal, veteran, TAY. But I can assure you that seniors will be included in the project.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Commissioner Jackson. Again, when it's the fastest growing segment, and as contentious as this discussion is, I have yet to meet one person. Well, actually, I take that back. I've met one who didn't agree that we should make seniors a priority, and that one person, indicated that most seniors also have drug and alcohol abuse problems, and I just walked away. So sometimes it's just best to to leave it at that. But we are, you can identify it. So,
Sure.
Yes.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for making this happen. This is quite amazing and impressive. So kudos to the team that's pushing this. My question, for clarification purposes, is along the lines that Commissioner Vasquez spoke on. It's 500,000 up to 500,000 per door. Is this? First question is this: what's the square footage? The other one is singular for single individual. So I imagine 400, 350 type square feet is what I'm imagining. I just want to verify that. And then for this, because it is more per door, and you said it's because it has more doors, is this for single, also individual?
Correct. These are for single individuals as well, so sorry about the interference. And again, where you'll see that cost difference is in more doors to have to rehabilitate, et cetera. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I think for clarification on the room size, I mean, HUD requires 300, Lisa, is it 300 square feet, 350? What's the HUD requirement for, isn't there a HUD requirement?
200 is what I heard.
200, okay. I was just wondering, thank you. All right, so I have a motion by Vice Chair Klempner, a second by Commissioner Jackson. Any further comments, questions? All right, seeing none, I will call the roll. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you very much to the staff and the team. And with that, I think we are done with our agenda, and this special meeting today adjourns at exactly 10:38 a.m. Thank you, and everybody have a wonderful day.